Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Astatora Sata Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to Lord Sri Krishna and Srimati Radharani. So, now we will begin. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So as it was mentioned, this will be from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 19. I will first read the Sanskrit and then go into the English translation. Again, chapter 7, text 19. If you have your books, and if you don't have books, not a problem. If you know the verse, I'll stop so that you can sing it just as well as I. I'll first do it, and then you do it, if you can do it. Bahunam janmanam ante janavanmam prabhadyate Vasudeva sarvamiti Samahatamasul durlabha. Anybody like to try it? Oh, go ahead. Bahunam janmanamante Yanavanma prabhadyate Vasudeva sarvamiti Samahatamasu durlabha. Yes, go ahead. Bahunam janmanamante Yanavanmam prabhadyate Vasudeva sarvamiti Samahatamasu durlabha. Anybody else? No? Okay, then we'll get into the translation now. It's a very important verse. It's the third most important that Srila Prabhupada speaks most often. In other words, he says this verse in his various discourses, in his different conversations, and also in his lectures. So it's a very important, it's not just another verse, it's a very important verse, and you might make a note of that. You know, before I go any further, I would like to mention that my service is primarily to produce audiobooks of Srila Prabhupada's paper books. So many devotees have already gotten them, and some of them don't. If any of you here would like to get a copy of the audiobook, all I need is your email address, and I can download it right into your computer. And I have a card here. All you need to do is, and I have a pen. So all I need to do is get your email address after the class, and I'll take it from there. Okay? There's no charge. It's a gift from this temple and myself to you, so that if you get a little too tired to chant the verse of the Bhagavatam, you can hear me chant it to you. Okay? Like rocking a baby to sleep and they go to sleep. Well, I hope you don't go to sleep when you hear this. Okay? So, translation. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me. Me means Krishna. Knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Now, someone who's familiar with what goes on in the back, I need to get some water. Okay, so someone, if you just go to the back, someone will have a cup. He knows how to get it. Okay, it will be taken care of now. Thank you very much. Otherwise, I'll be speaking like this by the time the cause. Okay, and you won't hear. So, I already said the verse itself. I'll explain it after I go through the purport. The purport is the commentary. The living entity, this is by Srila Prabhupada, while executing devotional service of transcendental rituals after many, many births, may actually become situated in transcendental pure knowledge that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of spiritual realization. So that's very important. Most people think that the ultimate goal of life is maybe to get a Mercedes or to get a Lamborghini. These are cars, by the way. And or to get a new house, or to get a new wife. To get a wife. That was a slip of the tongue. I'm sorry. I know a lot of divorces, but that. So anyway, to get new things, material things, which will give them a certain amount of stimulation of the senses, but after a while, they will want more or new or better stimulation, and it goes on and on and on. Getting things like kids, they get their toys, they play with them for a little while, and then they want new toys. So we're like kind of grown-up kids in one sense. But this book, Bhagavad Gita, says, grow up. Find out what the real meaning of life is. How to truly become joyful in a way which we may have never experienced before. And what is that way? It's the way of transcendence. Transcendence means, thank you very much. Get that open the cap. Would you open that for me, please? My fingers may not. Hey, there you go. Wonderful. That's great. Servants are everywhere. Thank you. Thanks for your service. I appreciate that. So, getting on with this point is that the goal of life is to experience God consciousness, to experience God. I'm looking at you, and I'm experiencing you, and I'm happy to see you all. And God is happy to see us all. But He wants us to see Him too. And that means that the heart has to be cleansed. If the heart is dirty, the heart is filthy with lust and anger and greed and envy and illusions and gluttony and hostility, you can't see God. God is peace. God is love. God is knowledge. So He's all this, and we have to become that too. And when we become it, we're in sync with God. And being in sync with God, we can communicate. If, for example, I want to talk to you, okay, but there's a person here and he's babbling away. Excuse me, no, excuse me, I can't talk to you. So similarly, we have these impurities, and these impurities must be removed. And then there's a clear space like we have right now between us, and we can communicate between, I don't know your name, but whatever it is, I would be able to find out, and then you would know my name, and we'd get into a conversation, and I would find out more and more about you, and you would find out more. So we would have a relationship. And that's what really joyful life is, to have a relationship. Without relationship, it is impersonal. It's empty. It's worthless. It's useless. But when you have relationships, and they're smooth, and they're caring, when they're loving, when they're sweet, when they're interesting, then life becomes very meaningful, very thoughtful, and very useful. But when it's impersonal, as I just mentioned there, it's empty. There's nothing there except just faces and bodies and words which often mean nothing except for oneself. But real life is thinking of Krishna, the Supreme Lord. Real life is also thinking of Krishna's various living entities, like all of us here, and trying to serve them as a way of serving Krishna. So you serve Krishna by serving your mother and your father and your brother and people who may be your neighbors or people whom you don't know. But you give. And you love giving, because who are you really giving to? You're giving to Krishna, who's in the heart of every single person. And when you give to Krishna consciously, not just give, but you give it, this is for you, Lord. This is how I try to become Krishna conscious in my day, by simply in my mind. Of course, I don't have to shout out, this is for you, Krishna. It's not something like that. This is for you, Lord. Because I want every moment of my life to be conscious of you. And I want to please you every moment of my life. I want you to be satisfied because, as it says in the scriptures, Jivera Swarupahoy Krishnera Nityadas. It is the constitutional position or the inherent position of the living entity to be an eternal what? Servant of God. So if we are doing what we are constitutionally made for, which is to serve God, not only will God be pleased, but because He will be pleased, He will give us pleasure by pouring His love upon us. When we have His love upon us, it's like when it rains and you get all the rain on you, well, you know you're wet. So when you get all the rain of God's love on you, you're wet with the nectar of His love. Okay? And that's something really to be wet with. So, and that comes automatically when we try our very best to please Krishna. So, let me get on with Srila Prabhupada's purport. The living entity, while executing devotional service means service to the Lord, and to please Him, as I just said. Our transcendental rituals, well, I did that sentence already, so let me go down to the next sentence. Person I've got it is okay. The living entity, while executing devotional service or transcendental rituals after many, many births, we have more than one birth. We go from birth to birth to birth. That's called the samsara, or the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Pure transcendental knowledge that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of spiritual realization. Now, we may feel doing charitable acts is the ultimate goal. It's not the ultimate goal. It is one of the goals, to be charitable to people. If people don't have and you have, you share. But it's not the ultimate. Why do we share? To please Krishna. Everything should be focused upon the one point of giving what Krishna wants, what He likes, what He enjoys. And if you do that, His enjoyment will be reflected as He lives in the heart. Me, you, everyone's heart, Krishna is living there. And when He's pleased, as I said a few moments ago, He gives His pleasure out to us. He shows His love to us. He pours the nectar of His exaltation upon us. And what does that result in? Happiness. It's automatic happiness. You don't have to go to a movie. Not that you can't go, you can go to a movie if you want, but that's not the way to get happiness. If you get it from God, you have it whether the movie is on or off. You get it when you walk in the street. You get it when you go to school. You get it when you're at your job. It's like a bubble. That's bubbling. You know, you take the 7-Up and you shake it up like this, and you take the cap off. You know, it goes like that. Well, that's the way God's love goes. It goes not just here, it goes throughout your whole body. And there are persons who get so much nectar, so much joy, so much happiness, they can hardly stand up. If you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, you will see that they chant Hare Krishna, but they do it with such devotion and dedication and such affection that God hears them, God feels them, God loves them, He wants them, He wants to reciprocate, give back to them. And what does He do? He just floods their being with such ecstasy that they can't sometimes stand up. Sometimes they're rolling on the body and say, Krishna, right, enough. I want to serve you. I can't serve you with all this ecstasy. That is real love of God. When you really don't care about your ecstasy, but you care about Krishna's ecstasy. And if there are some interesting characters in our scriptures who, when, for example, they were fanning Krishna, Krishna's charioteer, and Krishna was pouring upon him so much happiness and joyfulness that he couldn't hold the fan steady. And he dropped the fan. He said, Krishna, what are you doing? I can't serve you if the fan is on the ground. Please give me a break. I want to serve you. Hold the ecstasy for later. All I want now is to serve you lovingly. That's real love. And when we have that kind of real love, it's unconditional. It's unmotivated. It's given spontaneously through the heart. And the Lord gives it back to us. So, Going to the next. Each one of these sentences are like pearls or diamonds. Yeah. While one is trying to give up one's attachment to materialism, there is some leaning towards impersonalism. I think I already talked a little about impersonalism, and it's not something we want. For example, in human life, you're walking down the street and you say, "Good morning," and the person doesn't say anything. He doesn't care. He doesn't even recognize your existence. Or somebody gives you something very nice, tasty. You say, "Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that." And the person says, "You're very welcome." So this is personalism. In other words, you're expressing your feelings. Impersonalism is no expression of feelings, and it's a very horrible way to have to live because it's empty, it's shallow, it's useless, it's worthless, and really it's like having no life because the persons there are not responsive. And if they are responsive, there's life. And when there's no responsiveness, it's like no life. For example, if somebody's lying dead and you say, "Hey, Charlie, wake up." No response. He's dead. I said, "Wake up." No response. Dead. And that's the way relationships are when there's no loving responses. Or sometimes I give something to someone. I like to do service in the temple, and the person will say, "Thank you." And another person will take it and just walk off thinking that he's doing me a favor by taking my service. Pride, arrogance, contempt. This is not loving responsiveness. So we should all try to make it as best as we can to show our appreciation, to show our affection. Even if you don't like the person, that's a great discipline. Show love to someone you don't like. Because if we do that, what will happen is that lovability, or the power or ability to love someone, it will become a natural part of our nature. We will not have feeling, "I hate him." No, I'm neutral towards him. I like him. He's good because he gives me something. He says hello to me. He pats me on the back. He tells me how great I am. That's not the basis of loving and affectionate activity. We do it because God is in every heart. And because God is in every heart, basically we are saying, "How are you, God? Are you okay, God?" So we're talking to the Lord, and that's how we get to know God, by thinking of Him. God says, "In all activities, just depend. Now, always think of me. Become my devotee. Worship me. Offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you're my very dear friend," he says to Arjuna. Always think of me. What does always mean? It means 24/7. But it's hard to do that. So you have to figure out ways in which we can definitely remember Krishna. I had a difficult time for most of my life. So what did I do? I used to write the letter K on my wrist. So every time I would look at my watch, like now it's just 1 o'clock, I would say, "Oh, I may die in another minute or two. Let me think of Krishna, because if I die thinking of Krishna, I can go back to his spiritual world." So I would say, "Krishna," and then forget about him for another half hour. So after a while, I got tired of taking this pen and writing this K on, it's there on my wrist. I decided that, what am I doing this for? They got a tattoo artist just around the corner. And I'll just go over to him and tell him to, "Why don't you put a tattoo of this K on my wrist so I can think of Krishna?" He says, "No problem." I said, "How much do I have to pay you for that?" He said, "For the K, the bottom is, the lowest price is $50 for a little K." I mean, I know guys who get these girls with the mermaids. They had mermaids for $50. I'm going to pay $50 for a little K. But anyway, my K is worth a million times more than the mermaid. That's for sure. Because all the mermaid does is stimulate a little bit sense gratification in your mind. So anyway, sorry to get you going. But anyway, then what happened, he put it on, and you want to know what happened? He said to me, he says, By the way, we have a talk going on here. So he said to me, what do you do for a living? I said, I'm a monk. He said, you're a monk? Yes. He said, well, where do you monkey? I mean, where do you do your monkey business? Where do you monk? Down at the few blocks away, I do that. You can take a chair. A few blocks away, I do that. And we have a temple, the Hare Krishna temple. And we have a nice feast at the end of the, on Sunday. And it's free. He says, you're a monk in the Hare Krishna temple? I says, yeah, why? He says, well, my brother goes to the feast every Sunday. Your brother goes to the feast? He says, yeah. I said, well, then you owe me $50. The feast is actually worth more than $50. But we'll let you go, we'll let you slide. So he says, well, the best I can do is $40. Tell your brother to stay home next week. Because he's got a cheap brother. So anyway, no, I didn't say that, but I did say that please come and I will serve you and I won't charge you a penny, because our feasts come from the donations of persons. You see their names up there. They give the donations, and what happens is we cook up these very wonderful feasts, and there's no charge or anything like that. So, getting on with the with this, which I'd like to long sentences. Okay. There is some leaning towards impersonalism. That's what I was just talking about. But when one is further advanced, he can understand that there are activities in the spiritual life, and that these activities constitute devotional service. Devotional service was with people, with human beings, in the spiritual world especially, and even in this world. That's what we're all doing now. We're interacting, we're developing relationships. And those relationships are what we call devotional service. You find out about me, I find out about you, and we do things for each other. What is love except giving something to someone? You have a child. All day long you want to give them. You want to give them food. You want to give them a toy. You want to make them smile because you love the child. Consequently, that is what love. So the same thing with God. If you love God and you want to give God something, you can't help it. You just want to, please receive this. Please take this. And therefore, that is how our love develops. It grows. It increases. The more you give to the Lord, the more He gives back to you. And the more He gives back to you, the more joyful. But that's not why we give, to get something back. He just does that because that's His loving nature. We do it because to love God is our constitutional business. We're supposed to do that. He owns everything. He enables us to eat. He makes the food grow. He gives us our clothing. He gives us a shelter, a place to stay. He can also not give us a place to stay. If you have a place to stay, if you have a job, then we should count our blessings, because there are many people who don't have a place to stay and they stay on the street. So therefore, if Krishna is giving us blessings, then we should be very thankful and very grateful. And not once, but thousands of times per day, we should say, thank you, my Lord, for caring for me, for taking interest in me, for loving me. I hope I will be able to do something to show my appreciation to you by showing it to so many of your other children, like that. So, realizing this, he becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and surrenders to Him. So that's what makes it easy to give to God, when you surrender to Him. What does it mean to surrender? I wrote it down somewhere. Just give me a moment. I think I wrote a note. Because it's very important. How do you surrender to the Lord? Okay. Accept whatever is favorable for discharging devotional service. Something is favorable. For example, I give you incense. and you have a nice picture of Krishna in your home. So you take the incense, you light it up, and you wave the incense, and that's a way of worshiping Krishna. So that's accepting something which is favorable for discharging devotional service. So you make something very delicious, very wonderful, tasty, and you offer it to Krishna. That's favorable to devotional service because it's something that Krishna is going to like. To accept whatever is favorable, take it to yourself. If it has been offered to Krishna, then you can eat it because Krishna has already tasted it. And when you taste something that Krishna has tasted, it becomes super powerfully blessed. And that's what we want, to get that kind of blessing. And when we have that blessing, we feel very joyful, very happy, very satisfied, and very fulfilled. Okay? Now, another aspect of surrender, this surrender means you give yourself. It means giving up. But giving up something very, very wonderful to the Lord. So accept whatever is favorable, reject whatever is unfavorable. Somebody gives you something filthy or not good or not smelling good or something no good, you don't want to accept it because it won't help in our loving relationship with Krishna. We should believe in that God will always protect us. If we understand that He will protect us, but not just protect. If we depend upon Krishna, we look up to the Lord. We beg the Lord for His mercy, for His help, for His guidance, for His direction, then He will give us His protection. Feel dependent upon the Lord. Generally, we like to depend solely upon ourselves. But that's not the way to do it because we're limited. But Krishna, He's not limited. He's unlimited. He has unlimited power. He has unlimited agency, unlimited ability. So therefore, we should always be depending upon the Supreme Lord. It's a very important point. If we depend upon ourselves always, then what happens is that we may not get it because we're limited. But Krishna is unlimited. There's nothing He cannot do. There's nothing He cannot have. And anything you want, which He feels you should have, He can get for you. Understand that. But we should also have the humility to not demand, I want this, no. If you so desire, my Lord, please be merciful, be kind, help me to procure this. And if you do, I will continue to try to serve you. We should do what is separate. Our interest should always be the interest of God. In other words, we may have a regular job, but we have other things that are in the interest of Krishna. As we said, we do worshiping here, chanting here. We also prepare food for the Lord. Chanting, hearing, remembering Krishna. These are all things which the Lord particularly likes. He likes when you remember Him because He wants to give you blessings. But He's not going to give them unless you do something to earn it, to be worthy of it. And how do you be worthy of it? By showing how important He is. And you show how important He is by telling Him, my Lord, it is by your mercy I'm breathing. It is by your mercy I'm eating. How does my food get digested? You do that for me. How do I see? You do that for me. How do I hear? You do that for me. Hearing. How do I think? My brain works. How does my brain work? You do that for me. Krishna is doing so many wonderful things to enable us to do so many things in our life for ourselves and for our associates, for our relatives, our friends, for so many people who are taking the benefit and getting the pleasure of your service to them. Okay? So, therefore, and last but not least, in the practice of surrender is to always be humble and meek. If you act arrogant, if you act vain, if you act very overly important, conceited, that is not very much appreciated by most people. If you act conceited, you think you're the most beautiful, you're most handsome, and he's got nothing. Look at his clothes. He doesn't even have a good suit. That kind of a mentality. What happens is that people don't like you because you don't really fit in a harmonious fashion with others. Instead, you stand out like a sore thumb. And nobody likes a sore thumb. So these are the things about surrender. I'm going to repeat them. Accept whatever is favorable for discharging devotional service. Reject whatever is unfavorable for discharging devotional service. Believe firmly that the Lord will always protect his devotee. Feel dependent upon the mercy of God. Have no separate interest beside the interest of God. And always be meek and humble to the Lord and to those persons who are devotionally inclined, especially. Okay? Thank you. So let me find page 2 if I'll ever get to that. Oh, here we go. So what happens is that he becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and surrenders to him. That was the last word I mentioned, surrender. Do we all have that now? Surrender means, my body is yours, Lord. I give it to you. My body, my mind, my intelligence, my car, my child, everything belongs to you because you are ultimately the cause and responsible for it. Okay? In these scriptures, there was a little boy who was only 5 years old. His name was Prahlad Maharaj. How many of us know the story of Prahlad Maharaj? Oh, most of you. So I won't go into all the details except to say that he had a father who was the original child abuser, Hiranyakashipu. So, yeah, he truly was. Because his son did not recognize him as the Supreme Lord, he recognized Krishna or Lord Vishnu as the Supreme Lord. His father was very upset because he was a very powerful person and he wanted his son to recognize him, to look up to him, to honor him. But the son just said, you know what you should do? You should go to the forest and start chanting Hare Krishna. Well, the father didn't like that. So ultimately it led, sorry, water. So ultimately, the father became more and more envious of his son. And he was worried that maybe the son could defeat him in a fight. I mean, the son was only 5, but the son was protected by God. So when he tried to kill the son in different ways, example, threw him off a mountain. So when the child hit the earth embraced the child because God is in the earth. And he embraced the child in such a way that the child just got up and walked away. He tried to drown the child. He tried to poison the child. He tried to use spells upon the, and think that the child will dissolve. He'll become invisible and he'll pass away. So all these things happened as a result of the father thinking that he was so powerful. So then at one point, as you remember, the father said, where is this God that you're talking about? Where is he? So he said, he's everywhere. So the father said, is he in that, like that pillar? Is he in that pillar? He said, of course he is. Well, let me see him. So the son just remained quiet. And remaining quiet, he said, well, where is he? Where is he? Because he wanted to kill the child. It had come to that point. He said, he's there. And as soon as he said, he's there, there was a rumbling noise which came out of the pillar. Like that, like a lion roaring. And the pillar burst apart, and out came this man-lion. And the man-lion came out, and a fight ensued between Hiranyakashipu and the Supreme Lord. What was his name? Come on. Pardon? Nrsingadev, of course. Yes, so Nrsingadev, he came out and there was a big fight, and finally Lord Narasimha, he just tore him to pieces, and that was the end of that. So we should never, but the moral of the story is we should never think if we become very powerful, we become very great, we become very glorious and applaudable, we should never think that we are so wonderful and so marvelous that we should be honored, we should be applauded, we should be all. If we think that what happens is that we become very proud. And a person who's proud will ultimately be destroyed by someone who is more powerful. We never know who is more powerful than we are. So this is the point. Be humble. Humble means humble to who? To God. Where is God? In every speck of creation. This is what Prahlad said. This Lord that I'm talking about, who is so powerful, so great, and so glorious, is everywhere. And we should know that. When I look at you, God is in your heart. He's in your heart. He's in your heart. He's in your heart. I should address you not as you, but also as God the Supreme, because He's in you. And therefore, I should treat you in a way which is very honorable, very kind, very loving, because God is in you. And I'm addressing God at the same time that I'm addressing you, the person. So this is a very interesting way to live your life, because instead of thinking that this is just another person who I can ignore, disregard, who's not important, or maybe he's important for a little while, maybe a movie actor, maybe a singer, but in 10 years he'll be gone. So that's not the way. The way is to relate, to interact, to interrelate with God every moment. That's why Krishna says, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage unto me. Thus completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. How will we come to Him? He will drag us to Him. He will pull us to Him. And He will make Himself known to us, because He is very much pleased, satisfied, uplifted by our devotional affection and love to Him. Therefore, every effort that we make to love God will be made by Him to us 1,000 times greater. So you don't have to think that you'll be a loser. You'll always be the winner, because He wants you to know Him very greatly, very deeply, very sweetly. Okay? And He does that. As we grow and grow in spiritual life, we become more blissful, more peaceful, more happy. If you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, wow, what a book. I recommend all of you to it. I also have that in an audiobook form. Anyone who wants it, you just put your name on this sheet here. Not your name, your email, and I can send that to you too. These are free gifts that I offer to all the devotees here who want to deepen their devotional and loving service to the Lord, want to deepen their service to the temple, and want to become more and more knowledgeable about the purpose of life, and to live that purpose in our lives. Instead of just talking about it, thinking about it, contemplating it. No. What we do is we live it. So when I look at you, I don't just see your face, I don't just see your shirt, but there's a Lord sitting right here too. And little by little, I cultivate that attachment. Why? Because He's always being so nice to me, so kind to me, so loving to me. So therefore, when somebody gives you lots of love, you can't help but wanting to give something back. Is it not? That's why we give back to our parents later on when we're able to do that. Because now we can do it. When we're a little baby, all we can do is take. But when we're older, we like to give, because that is our appreciation for what we have received. Okay? So let me read on a little bit more. Yeah, so this is right over here. Sri Krishna. Yeah, this is a very important point. Realizing this, the devotee becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and surrenders to Him. At such a time, one can understand that Lord Sri Krishna's mercy is everything. And that's what we all eager for, the mercy of God. What is mercy? Oh, that you're just giving another word. You have to explain it. The mercy of God is a gift from God to you which you don't deserve. You understand? That's why we call it mercy, because you didn't do anything, but he gave it to you anyway because he loves you. You did a lot of bad things, but he still loves you because that's the nature of pure love. So yes, he gives prasadam. He gives you his mercy, and you know he loves you, notwithstanding that we did so many things that were not so. Have a great day. That were not so good. At such a time, one can understand that Lord Sri Krishna's mercy is everything, that he is the cause of all causes, and that this material manifestation is not independent from him. He realizes the material world to be a perverted reflection of spiritual variegatedness. That's a complex issue. I'm not going to get into that now. So let me just take it a little further. Such surrendered great souls. I already described what a surrendered person is. He considers, he feels, he knows his body, his mind, his intelligence to belong to God. And if it belongs to God, then we should give it to God. And if you give it to him, you're going to find amazing results. That's my personal experience, and that's why we have this temple, because Srila Prabhupada said the same thing. You'll have amazing results, and when you do, you'll want to share them with others who need them just as much as you needed them at some time. So, I've described very much. There's a lot more to this chapter, and let me give you a little bit more of what says here. If I can find, this verse is, sorry. Okay, getting there. Yeah. Okay. So I was speaking about, now this is, I made a brief mention of this, but I hope everyone will remember it. In the body of the living being, neither the power to speak, nor the power to see, nor the power to hear, nor the power to think is the prime factor. It is life, which is the center of all activity. What is life? Life is Krishna. With Krishna, we have all these beings. Without Krishna, it's emptiness. So, similarly, Lord Vasudeva. Vasudeva is another name for Krishna. Do we all know the meaning of the word Vasudeva? Okay, Deva means a god, not the supreme god, but a god, a very powerful person. And Vasu means good or great. So, great God is another word for Vasudeva, or the personality of Godhead. Lord Sri Krishna is the prime entity in everything. He's everywhere. In this body, there are powers of speaking, of seeing, of hearing, of mental activities, etc. But these are not important if not related to the Supreme Lord. So we should try to speak as much as possible about God. We should speak God's words, like the Bhagavad Gita. The more we associate with the Lord, the more we become godlike. And that's what he wants. He wants us all to become very godlike. He wants to give his qualities. He wants to give you his virtues. He wants to give you his goodness. He wants to give you his sweetness. He wants to give you tremendous abilities. He can do all that. But all we have to do is, what did I say? Surrender. And you surrender by saying, these words will be offered to you and for you. My words, my thoughts, my feelings, my love, all that will go to you, Lord. And by so doing, I will be doing what I am constitutionally supposed to be doing, as I said earlier. It is the constitutional position of the living entity, to be an eternal servant of God. So the more we serve God, the more we are in harmony, in union with what we're supposed to be doing, and that will bring harmony and union in our bodies, our minds, our feelings, and as a result of that, we will be peaceful, we will be loving, we will be joyful, and we will be, as I said, peaceful, And in so doing, we will be able to do our regular work. Many of us have jobs. You'll do your job better because you're peaceful. You're not in anxiety. You're not uncertain. You're not confused. You're not shaky. You're peaceful. And if you're peaceful, God is running and working through you. And if you have that going on inside you, you have the best possible situation that you can ever have. Thank you very much. All glories to your service. Thank you for allowing me to serve you with these words and ideas. Are there any questions? Yes, go ahead. Well, why don't you come up closer so I'll be able to hear you and repeat the question for those persons who are online. Yeah. It doesn't say that here, but go ahead. If you know that it is, that's not important. What I was speaking on? I didn't see that here. There are others. I see Shveta Svatara Upanishads and some other texts, but I can always check that further for you. Okay? Is there anyone else who has a question about anything I said which may have been confusing, not understandable, a discrepancy which will not help your life? Everybody agrees with what I said? Why? No, you should, because these are actually, I'm taking God's ideas and thoughts and feelings and sharing them with you, and I hope you'll take them and share them with your friends, with your parents, and with your acquaintances, with your workplace fellows and persons there. And if I can be of any help, again, I want to remind you, for those of you who may want a free audio book copy of the Bhagavad Gita, all I need is your email. Just put it on the back of this, and yeah, just a second. You already got it. It's already in your head, but you can do that. I'll get your email. Please put your email down on here, and thank you. Have a wonderful day, and don't forget this prasadam is where? Across the street? Okay. Just start looking and smelling. You'll find it. Okay. It's printed very large and legibly so that I won't make a mistake. Thank you very much. Jai. Thanks for coming. Thank you all for coming. It's a great pleasure. Huh? Glories to God. Hey, you're not going. Oh, you have to get the. You'll give it to me later, your email? Okay. Jai. Hare Krishna. Nice seeing you again. Jai. Thank you for staying. Yeah, come in front so I can.